This is going to be a extremely raw video. Context is I went through a breakup just yesterday, and honestly, I'm gonna put everything I've got into this video. So, if we start with a few points, I have a list, but we'll look at the word betrayal. And it's extraordinarily important that we do not over obsess over ourselves. So that means, in other words, that you learn how to see yourself being betrayed in a manner where you feel, first and foremost, you feel the pain. You process the pain. That will probably involve a form of grieving. This is necessary. Why? Because you get to the standpoint of being betrayed, and that hints at victimhood. That hints at you being hurt. Now, it's okay to be hurt because that means that you're vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, when you even have given an opportunity for betrayal, that is showing that you're living open. Now, this isn't about labeling others or judging others or holding on and creating grudges. It's not about any of that, but rather understanding the nature of the position, which is to be betrayed. And for instance, you may build something over a long period of time and it may be torn down fast, without reason, without explanation. And you get to that point of being betrayed from circumstances which you willingly played a role in. You voluntarily took part in the situation. So therefore, what I'm saying is I'm not saying don't feel. I'm saying that this is a natural erosion. It's supposed to hurt, and it's actually good that it hurts. It means that you're alive. And when I emphasize that point, this is all about seeing that you are where you're meant to be and accepting what happens in life. So when you accept you've been betrayed. You don't hold grudges. You forgive yourself for the role you played and you forgive others involved in the situation. The entire weight of betrayal itself gets lighter because there is just a realization that the only thing you can do is move along, not rush to um, get a shallow form of dopamic stimulus, but rather to trust your heart and to move in the same manner that has carried you to you being where you are. Now, it might be hard. It might be hard to be on the other end of a betrayal. But ultimately, somehow, some way, there is a powerful reason behind it, not in terms of practicalities, but in terms of the bigger picture, in terms of your future, in terms of your life, in terms of your heart, your mission, and who you are truly meant to be. So, the hardest part is that you're going to want to know why. Why did that betrayal happen? Sometimes you get the why, and it's just that's when it's easier to be angry. But even then, whether it be sadness or anger, whatever it may be, all we need to do is process and feel. So there's a few points. Now, heartbreak is similar to betrayal. And this, again, is the importance of being vulnerable. It's only the strong who can truly feel and be vulnerable. And that is almost how you get to the immovable place. Very frequently in my life, I've noticed that everything has seemingly gotten easier, but I've had to go through so many hard times for my life to feel and be easier. So that in itself is kind of the root truth of what we're dealing with here. Where these relationships, it's like you get so deep into something that your worldview is really shaped. And then when the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, it can be terribly hard to find your footing. But you know what? That in itself is giving you an amazing opportunity to strengthen your groundedness, to remember what matters most to you in life. And besides, there are things that matter, right? Money and your family and your relationships and your health, all that matters. But on the underlying big picture, it's the integration that matters. It's the piecing, not by force or by this need to piece things together, but noticing how things come together, noticing how a apparent loss was actually a bigger picture win. And sometimes it's absolutely impossible to see that in the moment, but you still have to have that realization that you have been here before, that you've gone through this before, and therefore, hey, you're strong, and it's not going to keep you down. So it's so hard, man. With heartbreak, with betrayal, you have to grieve and you have to feel, and that means really letting yourself go to those lower places to process the pain. It's like you go to those lower places and it still doesn't need to be personal. It still doesn't need to be immature. It's just a pain of attachment. And attachment isn't unhealthy. Like your human needs things. What I mean when I say your human needs things is that we're really just vessels and spirits in these bodies. But in order for the game to go around, in order for consciousness to feel, we humans have to go through this pain and suffering. And I guess the point there is that it's also a willing choice. The sooner that you're open and strong and courageous, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to be egotistically arrogant and numb and run and escape, but I'm really truly going to process the pain that has been born in my heart from things that I couldn't necessarily predict nor control, then hey, you learn, and that is so healthy for you to feel that pain. So when we look at the next points, we have suppression and we have reactivity. And the thing with betrayal and heartbreak is usually that there's a form of suppression that creates the energy allowed for the betrayal to even happen. So this is the hard part about life because everyone's living on a different level of honesty and self-integrity. And I can't judge people who are where they're at in their journey in relationship to suppressing things. For my relationship, I know it wouldn't be the way it is if suppression wasn't what happened. But for my girlfriend, this is where she is, or for that situation, we we just I can see now that there were things, opportunities to work through that weren't worked through that compounded into suppression, which then it's kind of like if you put ink in a bottle, right? It doesn't take much ink for that entire bottle to change color, especially when the water's clear before. So that suppression, it really distorts. And if you make decisions and come to conclusions from a distorted place, then, well, this is what happens and you get hurt. And I'm not saying I was making decisions from a distorted place. I'm also not saying I'm perfect. But see, this is where the forgiveness comes in. I can't hold a grudge. That wouldn't help me at all. And I just have to realize that somehow, some way, this was exactly how it had to unfold. And learn to let go of this certainty, which certain circumstances can breed, and then get used to having faith. And you can have faith while you're in grounded circumstances, but your faith is going to need a increase in strength when the rug has been pulled out from underneath where you stand. So ultimately, this nature of suppression is really that you have a trigger and for some reason you don't process that trigger. And as that trigger goes unprocessed, it's the same metaphor as a liar starts to stumble on their own lies. Because when you tell so many stories and you make so many lies, you cannot keep track of the things that are real and lies. And then your reality starts to be distorted, and the fine line is not fine anymore. And right, then your life is just half a lie. And that's what suppression does to your psyche and your decision making and your ability to orient through heart. If you suppress and suppress, then your heart or your intuition isn't actually accurate. And that's one of the most difficult things for a human to go through, but it's also necessary and powerful when you start to realize that what you thought was your heart or intuition was actually some unprocessed wound kind of acting as like a parasitic decision maker for you. And when you do process the deeper wounds, the trauma, the triggers, and you don't suppress, then your heart's clarity and your intuitive sight is actually on point with what's actual, what's real, and it is not distorted. So when you look at reactivity, escapism, and numbing, they all kind of build off of what we've been talking about here. But there's a destructive spiral that happens when these sort of things trio. And it's important, like, how do I put it? I'm so grateful even for the way that the painful events in my life have unfolded. I've noticed time and time again when I go through that which is miserable, it seems to be less miserable. Or the rate of suffering, I move through the suffering quicker and quicker. Now, maybe there's a trade-off because I think what's happening is I'm just feeling everything more and therefore processing everything faster. But I don't see anything to be wrong with that. It's actually like a fine path for many people. If you're on this accelerated route, I'm not saying your life's going to suck all the time, but you're definitely going to have this enhanced sensitivity, and therefore you will have your heart broken easier. And what other people see to be just a decision or a change or a I'm sorry, it may strike you to your core. Now that doesn't make you weak. That just means that you have a increased responsibility because the sensitivity, and you have to process that with care and love and compassion and be willing and open, courageous enough to feel the depths. And I know it's not easy. The depths bring you to the depths. Yeah. So on numbing escapism, we're going to bridge this over to really some of the universal ways to neutralize being stagnant, stuck, heartbroken, um, stuck in rage, whatever it may be, fear, etc. And that is that you look at your faith, your movement, your forgiveness, and your flow. It all starts with your breath. And sometimes you're going to be grieving, crying hysterically, and that's part of getting to know your breath. But then also on the rebounding aspect, fresh air, movement, understanding, how do I put it? Like, if you wake up early and you do the wrong things first, you're really setting yourself back. The wrong things would be picking up your phone, maybe coffee immediately. I'm not even saying coffee is great. I'm not saying it's bad, but at least waiting 30, 45 minutes before having caffeine in your system. Um, Water early in the day, like immediately. And then just noticing your breath, like right when consciousness snaps back, when you wake up, noticing your breath, noticing your breath. It's not easy, it's not perfect, but that's why I love to pair early morning meditation right after waking up. Sometimes you're going to have circumstances in life which make the fundamentals hard, and I promise you, I've gone through this time and time again where I've got a little loose on fundamentals. I've challenged fundamentals. I've wanted to see how I would feel without fundamentals, and it is ridiculous how life-changing the simple things are. Fresh air, exercise, nutrition, meditation, no phone, no pornography, no wasteful scrolling and journaling, working. Like, there's just certain things that when you cycle, you realize, man, when you fill your day with those amazing things, you still might not be perfect. You still may have periods in your day where you slip, but just naturally and organically, you learn to see how to be in rhythm, how to create flow. And that's what healing is about. That's what neutralization is about. And this flow state, it's very much in relationship to you and uncertainty, being able to accept the cards that you've been dealt, right? Like, I didn't choose to be left like this, but at the same time, I'm here, right? Channeling it because I know that's all I can do. That is exactly what I need to do. I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And you kind of, right? You get a little squirrely. Sometimes you get a little out of alignment, and the journey is really in finding your way back. And you can do that in so many different circumstances. It's not like you should have a partner or you shouldn't, or just trust your life, okay? Trust yourself and learn how to really question your illusions and see when you're not processing things, to be honest about when you're kind of taking the easy route, taking the easy way out, and just let that marinate. Let this entire video marinate. It's it's just a message that will hit you when you're meant to hear it. And I care for you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening from the bottom of my heart. I have a book out, so I'll put that book link in the description, and let's go. Have an amazing day. Share it with a friend.